Hey everyone, it's Riley and Matthew with ConcealedCarry.com. We're here on day 2 of the Concealed Carry Expo in Louisville, Kentucky. This is my first session today, so I'm happy to be here. I think many of you probably gotten used to seeing Matthew already, but I had a little presentation I had to do this morning, and so now is my first time to jump on the live feed today, and it's my pleasure and honor to do that together with Mr. Anthony Lambert, who just got done doing a fantastic presentation over on the demonstration stage. I mean, you should have seen it. Everybody that was walking by was stopping and listening to what he had to say.
All the applause that you heard while we were doing the other interviews was coming from his.
It was a thunderous roar.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're honored to have you, Mr. Lambert.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me.
And you're with Active Citizen Training.
Yeah, Armed Citizen Training. Yeah.
Armed Citizen Training. I know you're real big on medical trauma, treatment, stop the bleed, et cetera, et cetera. So you're doing a presentation on the Stop the Bleed campaign.
Correct.
Also at the show here, which, this is just so critical, I think, in this day and age. I mean, we saw real-life examples with the shooting in Las Vegas, for instance, at the Mandalay Bay shooting, with how critical that was. In fact, on the podcast, I had the pleasure of interviewing a real-life survivor of that incident that was on site, and she happened to be carrying a tourniquet, an Israeli bandage, a couple other things, just like a little mini IFAC that she had with her at the venue.
Very cool.
And one thing, tourniquet was used on one person, the bandage was used on somebody else. They were improvising tourniquets and doing things because they had the knowledge and the ability to, a little bit of experience. I mean, I don't know how much experience she had really, but a little bit of experience at least to potentially save some lives. So tell us about your background a little bit, Anthony, and what's so critical about Stop the Bleed? Where can people get started? Kind of the normal spiel that I know you're used to giving.
So what I would say is, so most of the people, USCCA members, if they don't know, I'm the one that actually writes the Lifeline column for Concealed Carry magazine, which really introduces people into the medical aspects of concealed carry. I think that's one of the big areas that people kind of tend to forget about because it's probably not as sexy, so to speak, as guns and knives and things like that. But when you really look at the concealed carry lifestyle, you really got to think about the medical aspect of it because, really honestly, what's the likelihood that you're going to actually shoot somebody in self-defense in your lifetime? Pretty low, and hopefully never. But what's the chances of you actually helping somebody because you come upon a car accident or, your neighbor fell off the roof or whatever the case may be?
Absolutely.
But I got started in this business as a chief hospital corpsman. I was in the military for 20 years. I served 16 of my 20 years with the United States Marine Corps because the Marine Corps does not have their own medical department. So the Navy has to, pick up that slack, so to speak.
Right. Sure.
And I saw there was a need in our community. Like I said, because most people think about, shooting classes, which is great because we definitely want to make sure all our responsible citizens are hitting their target and their target only.
Yep.
But what happens if they get injured in that process, right?
Yep.
So you got to continue that fight. So I wanted to make sure that we had a program in place to get that information out because it's not top secret information. It's something that everyone could use, everyone can utilize on a daily basis. Like you said with the Las Vegas shooting, there were people there with equipment, thank goodness. But even if you didn't have a tourniquet on you, could you make one? And that's kind of the other key things that I like to propose to the watchers out there is think about what you're wearing right now that you can utilize to make a tourniquet, right, or make a bandage. But use the patient's equipment first. Don't start ripping off your clothes and start making bandages.
Sure.
Use the victim stuff first.
Right. They're going to have those clothes removed anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and the other key thing that I think people need to know is that the number one reason why people die after a defensive encounter or some kind of mass casualty incident or any kind of medical incident is the loss of blood.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of us only have so much blood in our body. Okay. Yep. And once we lose it, that's it. There's going to be a point. If you lose half the volume of blood in your body, there's nothing we can do medically to bring you back. Okay. Because you're in the middle of in a concert. Okay. You're not at a blood bank. Right. So we want to stop that bleeding, that flow of blood as fast as possible. So time is of the essence. And the training that is being provided nowadays, I recommend everybody to check out the Department of Homeland Security website. If they go to dhs.gov, it's a great starting point, and just search Stop the Bleed campaign. They can do an online course in the comfort of their own home and learn about how to stop the bleeding, and learn about putting on a tourniquet, learning on how to call 911 and not be all frantic. In the Stop the Bleed class that I did yesterday, one of the PowerPoint slides is actually a real-life 911 call from the Parkland incident, and you could hear the kids saying, "Hey, there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood." And as a medical professional, I'm thinking to myself, "Well, stop the blood."
Right.
But I think a lot of times people are afraid that they're going to do something wrong if they step in to try to help, or they're going to get sued.
Yep.
So two things on that. Number one, think about it this way: if you don't step in, that person's bleeding, they're probably going to die.
Right.
Right.
Like you probably can't do anything
more
wrong.
It's
going to hurt them more. Right.
Right. So if you don't do anything, they're definitely going to be worse off.
Yeah.
But if you step in and try to do something, comfort them, put direct pressure. I mean, simple things. Just put pressure on the wound itself to slow that bleeding down could save their lives until EMS can get there, right?
I had a question for you on the aspect of tourniquets. So you were a corpsman, I was in the Marine Corps. Military guys, we know about improvised tourniquets and things like that, right? But have you seen it? There was an idea or a concept, especially in the civilian world, that tourniquets are bad. If you put a tourniquet on, you're going to lose that limb. But in the military, we always still used it. I mean, it was a tried and true method.
Right.
And have you seen now that more civilians are getting into tourniquets and seeing the benefit of them, there is kind of like a resistance to accept a tourniquet as a plausible,
an option?
Yeah, an option.
No, absolutely. I think everyone has heard the term tourniquet before, but it was always been explained to everybody as it's a tool of last resort.
Right.
Okay.
And if you use it, like their limb's going to fall off.
Right.
Or something.
Right. And really, up to that point, up to like 9/11, in the military, that was kind of how it was taught when I went through Corps school. Was tourniquet was a tool of last resort. When I try to use direct pressure, elevation, pressure point. But if you're in a mass casualty situation, and you have multiple injured Marines or just civilians. I may not have the time to sit there and hold a bandage on a wound. Right, exactly. And
you're taking
it may
one or two or three guys to 10 to 1.
Exactly. And so it may be faster just to throw a tourniquet on, move on to the next person. Okay, you're able to stop that bleed, and then you can move on to other people that need your assistance. So so that there's a paradigm shift. Everyone's got to be kind of open to new ideas. And after 9/11, being in Iraq and Afghanistan, I learned that, hey, throwing a tourniquet on there, people aren't going to lose their limb, even if it's been on there for 6 hours.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
There's been huge advances in medicine. We're saving lives. And ultimately, is it better to lose? I'd rather lose my arm than lose my life.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of my service members that are missing a limb, but they're alive and they're with their families and having a great life. So, and the other key thing that I think we all have to kind of come to the realization of is that we can't save everybody, and that's a sad fact, so to speak, because you want to try to save everybody. You could do everything right, and it is what it is. I hate to say it that way, but that's the reality, And lastly, if people are afraid to step in because they're afraid that they're going to get sued for, doing something wrong, I would like your watchers to look up, for their state that they're in, is look up the Good Samaritan law, okay? Because that protects, the citizen that's there to help. Now, each state's a little bit different. Some states only cover medical personnel or emergency response personnel, law enforcement, firefighters, things like that. And other states covers anybody that steps in to help in good faith, right? And you're not trying to hurt somebody.
We have seen a trend to where more and more states are passing those more comprehensive or broader reaching Good Samaritan laws.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so true. But the fear is a real thing, because I'll tell you what was a life-changing moment for me was I was 18 years old, just graduated from high school, working a construction job, was a Boy Scout, learned some medical stuff, right?
Sure.
You know, in the scouting program. One day I came up on the scene of an accident. Poor little 7 or 8 year old girl struck by a pickup truck while she was riding a bike, and she was hurt pretty bad. And I realized then in that moment I was not prepared to handle that situation.
Right.
And I was afraid to do anything because I didn't feel like I could do anything. And I just want to say that's, like, it's understandable to have that feeling because I was there, I experienced it. It became a big catalyst for me to go and get, immediately I went, within weeks, I was like, okay, I'm getting a CPR class, first aid, whatever. I'm going to make sure I get certified in those things. And then, understanding some of these things, Good Samaritan laws, for instance,
right.
So that I knew that, okay, it's okay to step in and help. And the better thing is to try to help rather than, just stand there and look at them and,
right.
watch them bleed out. Or
right. Unfortunately, nowadays, it seems like when something like that happens, the first thing that people reach is their phone, but not to dial 911, but to grab some photos so they can post it on their Instagram account or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And but yeah, call 911. Get in there. Even if you don't know what to do medically, just comforting words can be a huge help.
Yeah.
Hey, you're gonna be all right. Help's on the way. That way, the patient, you're calming them down because if they're excited, they could actually cause them to bleed more. Okay?
Yeah. Getting the heart rate up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's try to calm that person down and just using soothing words. Hey, it's gonna be all right. And you don't know if it's gonna be all right or not, but at that point in time, that's all they need to hear.
Yeah.
And what's really good is, and we talked to Kevin McCloskey earlier, and why what you're doing is so important, and the Concealed Carry Magazine is a holistic approach to self-defense. A lot of people get wrapped up in guns, or they get wrapped up in knives, but they don't realize the application of we're talking about responsible citizens, right?
Absolutely.
And responsible citizens aren't just ones that defend ourselves. We might also have to help people medically, and by you writing your column, you're showing people not only tactics, but having them realize that it's really not that difficult to do a lot of this stuff. It's not. And so as an 18-year-old person, you come across this person, you're thinking back to an article that you wrote and saying, yeah, I don't know everything. I'm not a tactically trained medic, but I know pressure. I know improvised tourniquet. And those are simple things that anybody can do.
Exactly.
So that you're saving lives by getting that information out.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's really been the drive and the goal of the Lifeline column in Concealed Carry Magazine is to get that information out. And the best way that I try to translate all this medical information to everyday people is think of your body like a house. If you've experienced a leak in your house, what'd you do? You didn't let it just leak, right? Because that creates damage. Well, if you let your body leak blood, that creates damage. So what'd you do to fix your pipe, the leaking pipe in your house? Same concept, maybe just a different application, but the concept's exactly the same. And everybody here has the ability, right? That's the key thing is I want them to realize that they have the ability to do this. It just, are they willing to step up and do it?
Yep.
Right?
Awesome.
So
check out the Stop the Bleed campaign. Check out Lifeline column in Concealed Carry Magazine and the good work that Anthony Lambert's doing. So Anthony, appreciate your time today, man.
Thank you so
Keep
much
up
for having me.
the excellent work.
Thank you.
We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.